Welcome to Podjunction, where business meets podcasting. Whether you're on a morning jog, driving to work, whipping up a meal, or just taking a moment for yourself, our weekly bite-sized episodes promise fresh insights from successful podcasters who have cracked the code of using podcasts to grow their business. So whether you're a podcasting newbie or seasoned podcaster, grab your notebooks and get ready.
Well, hello and welcome to Podjunction. My name is Matt Edmundson. Beside me, pointing a finger at the screen, telling me there's something wrong, is Sadaf. We fixed it now. So, welcome to the show. Great to have you join us. This is a show where we talk about podcasting, we talk about business, we talk about how podcasting can help us grow our business, and probably all kinds of other random stuff in between, right?
Lots of random stuff in between.
So it keeps us busy, keeps us entertained. That's the main thing. So welcome to the show. If this is your first time with us, make sure you do that, that thing where you subscribe to the show. You'll be grateful that you did. Or I'll be grateful that you did. Somebody's going to be grateful somewhere. So you may as well subscribe. It'd be great to have you join those subscribing to the show. And of course, if you're up for it, come check out the website, podjunction.com. Fill out the newsletter form. It'd be great to see you in there as well. There you go. Plug over. How you doing?
Good.
Yeah, new day.
New day.
New day. Welcome. Tell us, why don't you tell people about yourself? Because it's normally me that talks.
About myself?
Yeah. You normally ask me a question. I'm getting in there first. What is one piece of information that most people don't know about you? Why you do that?
Okay.
Anytime today.
Most people do not know about me. Okay, well, I don't know, Matt. What don't they know?
It's so not known that I don't know it myself.
I don't know what to share.
Like when people ask me that question, just to give you some ideas.
Okay, thank you.
Things that I will say.
Yeah.
My grandmother thinks that the Earl of Sefton was part of our family and he married a common girl and renounced his title.
Okay.
That was something my grandmother told me before she passed away. I have not been able to verify this fact. The Earl of Sefton, by the way, is based in Liverpool, which is where I now live. Yeah,
it makes sense.
Crocs to Thorpe.
Okay.
Near your house.
Park.
Crocs to Thorpe, apparently.
Okay.
There's a painting of my great-great-great-grandfather somewhere in some hall somewhere. Yeah, I don't know.
Not Crocs.
I've not been able to verify any of what she told me.
Oops.
And it may have been that she had one or two sherries that maybe she shouldn't have had. I don't know. But she was convinced that at a wedding, somebody went up to, I think it was her grandma, and told her about her great-grandma. I don't know. It's one of those things. If there's a historian out there that can verify or de-verify this fact, I would genuinely love to hear from you. Anyway, that's one of the things I was saying.
Okay.
Which is an interesting fact.
That is an interesting fact. Should we move on?
I want an interesting fact from you.
I don't know. There's nothing interesting about me. The fact that I can't remember stuff.
Or that you have no microphone technique.
Yes, that is true as well.
We were establishing that this morning. You re-recorded some video, didn't you? And you put the microphone like that. Because you have to watch the video to see what I've just done. But basically, normally when you do a podcast, the microphone is pointing towards your mouth, and you tend to speak over it. Rather than directly into it, like a musician would sing, to avoid the plosives.
Okay.
But Sadaf, no, she puts her microphone pointing entirely away from her and goes, it's a bit quiet.
Oh, I got something interesting.
Okay, go.
Because everyone was laughing at me in the office this morning.
Oh, is that what that was? I heard lots of raucous laughter. I wasn't actually in the office. I was in the warehouse, but yeah.
Well, I couldn't find my water bottle this morning. So in my rush, I grabbed a vase. Can I show them?
If you can reach it. So if you're watching the video version of this, you will now see a vase or a vase for American cousins on the screen. Do you say vase, not vase?
I do both when it comes to them.
Okay. So Sadaf needed a container big enough to contain copious amounts of water, so you got a vase.
Yeah.
Rather than just a really big glass.
Yeah, because they just, the water finishes way too soon out of a glass. So something more like this is what I recommend.
Okay, so top tip, if you're, trying to deal with your hydration.
Yes.
Drink from a vase.
What you missed actually was after you went out, I don't know where you went, but Michelle came in with one of those big jugs. And she's like, you might need this instead in case you're dehydrated.
Okay. Is that what that was? A really big vase. Okay, good to know. Good to know. And if you're listening and not watching, she has taken the flowers out.
Yes. I'm not drinking them.
What are we talking about today other than drinking from a vase?
Yeah, okay. We're talking, well, you had a conversation with James Gurd.
Mm-hmm. Another legend.
Yep. And in this segment, he is talking about how he started his podcast and why he chose podcasting over other mediums such as writing blogs.
Ah, yes. The legend that is James Gurd. Shall we run that VT?
Yes.
Do you know what VT is?
Nope. But I think yes is the right answer.
You work in this industry. VT just stands for videotape. It's what they used to say, like in the 80s and 90s when it's like
when they had videotapes.
Yeah. Run that segment, run VT. And they play that segment. So
let's run VT.
Let's run VT. Here's James.
What was the reason for starting the podcast? Was it an epiphany one day, or was this something that you'd thought about long and hard?
I wish I'd had an epiphany at any point in my life, to be honest with you. I'm still waiting. So if I look at what I'm trying to do, I've run my own business for 15 years. And I'm not an agency with loads of people. I don't have a business development team. I'm doing everything. So I've got to win the business and I've got to do the business and service it. So I have to do business development in some context. And for years, I built up my network through doing like guest content and blogs and reports for people like eConsultancy I've got a good relationship with. So I was doing things for other people.
Yeah.
So it's their content, but my voice on their platform. Then I realised that that's great and I really do value that. But actually, it's not adding anything to value to me in terms of establishing me as a thought leader with a consistent voice. Then I started thinking about writing a blog, and I don't really like writing, I've decided. There's so much content out there, written content, and to write long-form content and get people to read it is a massive challenge.
Yeah.
So much drop-off in long-form content, and just having listened to a few podcasts and enjoying the format, I thought, do you know what, actually, I think this is better suited to my personality and my skill set and how I like to communicate. And I'd like to be able to not just be me talking, but me guiding the conversation with other people so that there's a broader perspective in the content that I produce. So it was a bit of a pivot towards a moment of, do you know what, let's see if there is interest. And Paul is massively enthusiastic about e-commerce and digital and a wonderful person who's got a lot of complementary skills that I don't have. So I just pitched it to him because we worked on a few projects together and he was interested. I didn't want to do it on my own because I think for me it was going to be harder to maintain the enthusiasm and the motivation around exciting guests. So I guess that's my rambling way of saying where it came from.
So you were in the content creation game at the time. And you looked at this and thought, this is probably going to be a better fit for us. So you went along with the podcast. Was there anything, when you started the podcast then, did you do like a course? Did you read a book? Or did you just go, I'm going to watch this video on YouTube and jump straight in?
If only I was a professional.
Yeah.
No, well, I'd listen to other podcasts. There's so many out there now. I think that's interesting. When we started planning it back in 2019, although podcasting wasn't new, it wasn't as popular as it has been because obviously the pandemic kicked off a load more. So I've been aware of various ones over the years and listened in and listened to what people did and how they did it and thought I had an idea. What I didn't know and what we didn't know is the platform. How would you syndicate it? How would you record it? How would you edit it? The practicalities, because to be honest, sitting and talking is easy. It's knowing that you're doing it in the right way, that you've got the right quality of outputs, and that you've got a place that's good. Because you suddenly realise when you look at the podcasting landscape, there's a lot of distribution networks out there, and there's so many players. And how do you get on those players, and what do you do, and which ones are most popular, and what most? Yeah. So we did some basic research. We got some advice from people we knew at the time. I wish I'd known all of you guys because we connected later on in this journey likes of you, for example. I wish I'd known that. I wish I'd have made those connections earlier and asked the advice. It'd probably been a lot easier. But yeah, we decided to pick a route which was using Anchor as a distribution platform.
Okay.
And because somebody else had said that they'd used it and found it quite easy, and to learn on the go, because we thought if we'd spend ages and ages researching, we'll never start it. We wanted to get started because the biggest barrier was, well, we can put this off for a few more months. So we were like, no, get it live and then finesse it.
Yeah, no, and I think that's such an important point, isn't it? If you're thinking, is podcasting right for me and my business? Fundamentally, one of the key things is you've just got to start, and just getting out there and just giving it a go. I think you can do that with mobile phones now. But can I ask, what tech did you start with?
Yeah, so I mean, before we settled on Anchor, we looked at a couple of other recording platforms, and me and Paul did a few like dummy episodes to up and record and work out how we'd do all of the distribution settings, connections into things like Spotify, Apple, you name it. And the other ones were okay, but we didn't find it that easy. Anchor, because somebody else flagged it and said this one's all right, and Paul had heard of it as well. So we got onto them. We just found it very intuitive. The user interface to get set up your account, to upload episodes to connect to the different players where you want your podcast distributed, to set up your RSS, to get basic data out of it. It was just quite easy to use and very low cost. So for us, we didn't know where the podcast was going and would anyone listen. For all we knew, 6 months down, we'd can it. So we didn't want to put a load of money into the high end, the most elite platform we could find. We wanted a platform that gave us the basics. And we're not pretending to be the sleekest podcast on the planet. We are just like meeting up in a coffee shop. So it doesn't have to be, the most like brand smooth, pixel perfect. Our focus on content and guests, and hopefully just making sure that the audio and video quality is good enough so that people can enjoy the episode.
Yeah, no, that's fair play. It's interesting, isn't it, that that was the kind of route that you went down, and I'm intrigued by something that you said. You mentioned you did a few dummy episodes. Tell me a little bit about that. Yeah,
so because I guess I could ask the same question to you about how do you settle on the format? Like how do you decide how you start an episode? How do you frame it? How much do you prepare? How much is it off the cuff? We didn't have a clue, having not podcasted at all. So me and Paul had done lots of industry events and lots of content stuff, but we hadn't actually done podcasts before for other people. So our key thing was, what is our format? It's all well and good having the player and the distribution network, and having like a good mic. The other thing, the tech, you say good mic. That's absolutely thing, because the sound quality on those dummy ones was shite. it was like and really tinny, room off of like MacBook speakers. So basically, we came to the format of, okay, well, we want to try out a few dummy ones to work out how we run this. If it was an episode just me and him, what would we do? So we did ones where we just turned up on the topic and just riffed. We did ones where we planned out discussion guides, and then we started to realise that people were going to jump into an episode with us just starting talking with no context. Like, this is basic 101. You wouldn't write an article without anyone knowing what the title is and what it's about and what they're going to get from it, right? You go back to your 101s of what customer experience is, and then we did the whole thing. Okay, so we've got to frame this, we've got to introduce it in each episode, we've got to set the scene so people know what they're going to get. Then if it's not relevant, they don't waste their time. And if it's relevant, they know what's coming next. So I guess it was just a teaser. We didn't get it right first time at all. I mean, I reckon it took us 12 months to get to the point where it felt polished. Yeah.
That's interesting. And how many episodes did you do in that 12 months? Is it a weekly show?
We started off every 2 weeks because we didn't want to bite off too much. Because, again, when you start, you don't know how much time and effort. And I think one of the biggest, and I'm sure we'll get onto this, one of the biggest surprises that a lot of people get podcasts is the time and effort to plan properly, record, edit, get it up, do the marketing. It's not to be underestimated, although once you've got a process and a routine, it's quite smooth. But so we started off every 2 weeks. And then we quickly realised that if you wait 2 weeks, a lot of people have forgotten about it because we're so transient. Therefore, we decided we needed to go weekly. And I think after a couple of months, we went weekly. And then at that point, we were more focused on getting guests on than we were on really trying to polish and hone the podcast delivery. So I think that was like, it's like MVP approach to launching an e-commerce site is get the bloody thing up and running, working and sell, then worry about finessing your user journeys and your customer experience.
If you're intrigued and want to dive deeper into this conversation, check out Podjunction Cohort, where you can listen to the complete interview and much more. Simply visit thepodjunction.com for more information about how to join.
Very good. Welcome back. Thanks, James. Great conversation. The thing I loved about James talking was, if you didn't know James and the industry that he worked in, you would go, he has got to be involved in some kind of digital thing, just because of the phraseology, like MVP. You've got to get your MVP, your minimum viable product, up and running, and then refine as you go along. All very sprint, all very good, all very interesting, and it's just interesting how he has brought his sort of digital knowledge into how we approach podcasting, if that makes sense. Yeah. So the whole idea of the MVP. I appreciate there are industries outside of digital that use the same thinking, but that's just the industry that I know, and it's very, very trendy language.
Yeah. Does that reflect at all on the name of his podcast?
Replatform. Well, his whole business is about helping e-commerce businesses change their platform. So if you want to move from the platform you're on to another platform, which quite often you do if you're an e-com business, because you grow, you develop, it needs to expand. And so, his company is all about helping you do that. And those guys do a great job. And, heard lots of good things about them. So, what was your question? Totally lost track of thought then.
No, you were saying like his lingo that he uses.
Digital, replatform. So that's what he does. He's involved in the e-com space, the digital space. So all power to him, as they say. So what'd you get out of
that? Well, I liked what actually you said it in response to what he was saying, that to just start and not overthink it too much. And then he went on to talk about how they fine-tuned it as they went. So they just started. And not with tech, but also with, what are you laughing at?
No, I'm smiling because that's our story. I'm just thinking we did exactly the same thing. We just started and refined it as we went along.
Yeah. So the tech as well as the content, or rather the format.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting how our journeys are very, very similar. And again, I think this is very much a digital thing. It's like you just start something, you figure it out as you go along. You pivot. There's that word again, which I really can't stand. We pivoted. But it is very much the case of, you start something, you learn something, you figure out the next step, you try that. I call it discover, try, learn. And then you kind of go, okay, that worked, that didn't work. What's next? And you refine, don't you, as you go along. Pivot. I'm going to take a pivot. And so, very digital, very e-com, very straightforward stuff. But our stories, I think, are very similar because where our podcast started and where they've ended up, two very, very different places.
Yeah. And I think something else, actually talking about how we're similar, something else that resonated was that he has a small team.
Yeah.
And then doing the daily grind plus business development at the same time, trying to hold those two things together is not always easy.
No,
straightforward.
Not at all. And he's right in the sense that I think when you start a podcast, it's easy to underestimate how much work is involved in doing it.
Sure.
But conversely, I think it's also easy to overestimate how much work you should do in it, because, things like when it comes to your audio, I remember talking to a lady called Amelia about this. Has Amelia been on this show? She's been on EP.
Not on Podjunction, no.
We should get her on this show because she does a podcast. She's super cool, Amelia. I really like Amelia. In fact, Amelia and I are going to do a live stage podcast recording this summer at Subsummit.
At Subsummit?
Yeah, which would be great. So I remember talking to her about it, and she was like, she would record a podcast episode and they'd spend 8 or 9 hours on this episode. And they would edit that episode out, and they would be like, they would take out all the ums and the ahs and the filler words. And yes, you can use AI now, like Descript has a
Yeah.
feature where you can push a button and it will just take all of that stuff out.
Yeah.
And it's on the whole, it's pretty good. You don't have to do much correction afterwards. And so, yeah, I mean, talk about refining it and polishing it and spending that amount of time. And I remember saying to Amelia, I said, my challenge to you, Amelia, is for you to edit an episode in 2 hours or under. And she was like, you are? And I was like, no, you should totally do it in that time, because I don't think you should take it, especially if it's an interview chat show type thing. Why would I want to take all the ers and ums out?
Yeah.
Because I don't know if it makes a blind bit of difference to the listener, because it's like the podcast is 45 minutes long and I've saved 6 seconds by taking all the ers and the ums out. And I think it's more authentic when you leave them in. So you can over polish these things. Now, do we do that for reels? Absolutely. Because I think short form video, 30 second, 60 second video has got to be like, bang on.
Yeah.
But for a podcast, I think you can over edit and you can spend way too much time trying to get everything perfect.
Yeah.
So I think this is really interesting. You can either be one or the other. And I think probably, I don't know, what do you think? How long do we spend an episode? Is 2 hours a reasonable time?
Yeah, actually, I think we do it quite quickly. I think maybe taking into account reels and stuff like that maybe takes a bit longer, because as you said, you want it to be cut down and want it to be just right, because you're trying to get a message across in just that many seconds. But yeah.
If you took out if you took out the short form video, which I don't know if I would advise doing with the way social media is at the moment, but if you did, I mean, it saves an awful lot of time.
Yeah.
But our process is fairly straightforward, isn't it? We record the interview. We have a sheet. What do we call it? A one sheet? I don't know. Is there a name for it?
We just call it a AMP document.
Call it the AMP document. Named after the software we've developed. Called AMP, which we've developed for podcasters. But it's that kind of thing where we, at the end of the recording, and I do it straight after I've recorded the podcast, because that's when I remember, I go on there and I go, right, what were my top takeaways from this conversation? And I'll write those in there.
Yeah.
And then once we've got that key information, the rest of it's pretty straightforward, I think, in terms of data creation. So or content creation rather. So then we take the video, we upload it to Descript. Descript transcribes the video. Maybe it translates it as well. I don't know. I don't think it does. So it transcribes the video, which gives us a full script. And then the other thing that I do is I look at that podcast and I kind of decide which bit we're going to use for the reel. Now we create one reel per episode usually. If people do what we call the fast track service, which is where they pay us money, we do 2 reels. Is that right?
Yeah.
Now, we have used software to try and do this. We've tried AI in the past, haven't we? Where we've uploaded full clips and had AI generate clips, which we've then used for vertical video. Which one did we try? Was it
Memento?
Yeah. Memento, something like that. What did you think to that?
I didn't like it.
Why not?
I didn't. I mean, I love the fact that it was trying to do something helpful, but
just like my kids. They're trying to do something helpful, but they are failing miserably.
Yes, exactly that.
Great
but
review.
I don't think it was what we wanted, like as concise as we wanted.
Yeah. I think AI is getting better at trying to figure it out, isn't it? But as things currently stand here at the start of 2024, we do those clips manually still. We have tried AI, but we think manually is still a better route. Yeah. Granted, we could use AI and shave off that time. And I think we will as AI gets better at figuring out the kind of thing that
I think at that point we were spending more time going through all the clips it was suggesting to see if it would work, and it was easier to just make our own.
I just want that one.
Yeah.
But I think if you wanted like 30 clips and you didn't care about them, you could just take all of those clips and whack them on, can you? But it's one of those things, isn't it, with AI? AI is both good and painful at the same time, because you still got to spend a lot of time with it. Yeah. We do that. We get the full transcript. From the transcript, we create the blog post, which goes alongside the podcast. The reason we have the transcript now is obviously it's very, very good. Like Apple just announced with the new update 17, is it 17.1? I don't know what we're on with Apple right now. But I was listening to their webinar last week. Went on to the Apple Podcast webinar. You can sign up for that actually. Whenever they do their webinars, find out what's going on. But they've just introduced a transcription service where actually, even if you don't upload because you could always upload your own transcript, but now they will actually transcribe your podcast.
Okay.
And so when you upload it, you actually have to turn it off if you don't want that feature.
All right.
So the default is they will transcribe your podcast. I think it's only available in English right now. But they will transcribe your podcast, which obviously is a beautiful thing. One, because Apple then knows what your podcast is about, which, from an SEO point of view, which is good. And also, obviously, people sometimes hard of hearing, they need to be able to see, with subtitles what's going on. And so why not, right? So giving them the transcription as well is easy because we've created it. And so, that's kind of our process.
Yeah.
It's a whistle-stop tour of that process, but it takes about 2 hours.
Yeah, maybe just over. But not 9.
But definitely not 9. Don't tell Amelia it takes more than 2 hours. Only takes more than 2 hours because we do the short form video, which I don't think Amelia does for her clip. But your actual podcast, the actual process of once you've recorded the podcast, getting the audio done, polished, and uploaded to your podcast player, even if you include the blog post to go on your website, I think it should take less than 2 hours.
Yeah.
Is that fair enough?
Yeah, I would say so.
I mean, I don't manage production, you do.
Yeah. No, I think about that long. Yeah.
That's where Sadaf goes, no, we're all taking about 12 hours. I'm talking nonsense again. But no, that was where we drifted slightly there, didn't we, in terms of process. But yes, the time invested in an episode is quite fascinating.
Yeah.
In terms of what that is. And we'll get Amelia on the show and we'll ask her how she reduced it from 8 hours to 2.
Yeah.
I'll talk to her about that in the summer. What else do we get from that?
I'm trying to read my notes.
Yeah, good luck. Do you need glasses?
He talked about being on Zoom.
No, he didn't.
He didn't? Did he not?
No. Were you listening to the same episode I was listening to? How did he talk about being on Zoom?
No, I didn't get that one. No, you know what? It's because I'm listening to the full length episode and I'm just drawing some,
okay, so he does talk about Zoom
he does.
on the full interview, which you can get in the cohort if you want to listen to the full, which I would strongly recommend you do with all of these interviews, actually.
Yeah, because he was talking about that in the context of tech. So that's where I went from there. So, yeah.
Okay.
So, go listen to the full interview and find out what he says about Zoom.
I was a bit like Zoom. But no, all very good. So, do check it out. And also, I think the final point from what James was saying is it took him a year to get really to a place where he was happy with his podcast.
Yeah.
It's an important point.
Yeah.
Didn't
Rich Brooks say that?
Yeah.
Do 52 episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's quite a common theme, actually. You'll notice there's some common themes with the different podcasters we talked about. One of the common themes is just be prepared. I mean, we have this thing when we do the strategy sessions with clients. We talk about the first 10.
Yeah.
So the first 10 episodes, we say on any podcast are going to be utterly useless. And if you're doing an interview, I say utterly useless, that's probably unfair. They're not going to be as where you want them to be.
Yeah.
Because in the first 10 episodes, there's some rapid learning going on, especially on an interview podcast, figuring out your interview style, what kind of questions to ask, how do you come across on the microphone when you're interviewing people? I mean, all those kind of things.
Yeah.
And so getting through your first 10, I think, is the first milestone. But getting to your first 50 is probably the next milestone after that. And you'll hear these sort of common things with podcasters that actually a lot of people drop out before episode 20. A lot of people, I mean, unbelievable amounts of people drop out before episode 20. And so actually by the time you got to episode 50, not only have you stuck around, which already puts you in a class of your own, you're gonna be well polished. But I think you've got to think about it in that kind of terms. Yeah. Awesome. Well, what's coming up next week?
James Gerd again.
And was he talking about Zoom?
Don't ask me now. I'll tell you in the next episode.
Next episode on Sadaf gets confused on what we're talking about. Do join in the show. Do come listen to what we're talking about. Hopefully it'll be relevant. But yeah, do check out podjunction.com for more information about this show, how you can subscribe, how you can sign up to the emails newsletter, and also, I can't even talk, and how to find out and access the full interview with each guest in the cohort. So do check that out. And do check out the full interview with James, because James is a legend. Reach out to him, especially if you're looking to re-platform your e-com business, because he will be able to help you. He's a great guy. He's the guy to go talk to. But yeah, anything else from you?
No.
Awesome. All right. Have a great week, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back next week. Bye for now.
And that brings us to the end of today's episode at Podjunction, where business meets podcasting. If you enjoyed the insights from today and wish to hear the full conversation with today's special guest, don't forget to visit thepodjunction.com, where you'll find more information about how you can join today. Whether you listened while on the go or in a quiet moment, thank you for letting us be a part of your day. Remember, every episode is a chance to gain insights and to transform your business with podcasting. So keep tuning in, keep learning, and until next time, happy podcasting.